What up, y'all? Welcome back to Sexton Accountability. I hope everyone's doing well. Today, I want to talk about something that can be hard, and it's showing emotions, being in touch with your emotions, expressing emotions in a healthy way, and the concept of emotional recovery or sobriety. All right, so let's get right into it. So basically, I grew up in a hippie family, and so showing emotions was accepted, but still there's this societal pressure as a dude to not show strong emotions, specifically like feeling sad, because then somehow that makes you weak. We're also taught on a societal level that we're not supposed to ask for help. And it's this like pull yourself up by your bootstrap mentality. And it's fucking bullshit, because what it does is it breaks people down to the point that they will literally blow up from a small inconvenience. And so that's where you see people who are committing, acts of violence when it comes to road rage, and people who are just potentially, you know, like good people, but they're literally reacting and blowing up out of anger because they're not in touch with their emotions and they're trying to push them aside. And look, we could get into just labeling some people as just outright fucking dicks and that they have no worth. And I just personally don't do that. I mean, there is a certain line that if you cross it, that I kind of like don't advocate for you anymore, when it comes to like SA and like, the abuse of children and stuff like that, and the abuse of women, or just the abuse of other humans. Then I can get into this area to where I'm like, fuck you. So I'm not going to bullshit you guys. But for the most part, I'm just talking about like generally in our reality and in this experience of being a human, when people are stuffing emotions. All right. So I'm not going to get too deep into that other stuff. So basically through the years, and through my substance abuse, I got to the point to where I thought that I was addressing emotions and stuff, but I really was stuffing them down a lot. And a lot of this stuff had to do with lack of self-worth, with negative self-talk, with knowing that I was not living up to my potential. So that just caused a discrepancy, because I constantly was thinking like, damn, dude, you're really not doing well, and your behavior is fucked up, and you're saying hurtful things. And like, so I want to touch on, just some of the manifestations of me not being in touch with my feelings, and, what that translates to. So it translates to a lot of toxic masculinity, if you want to call it that. I feel like, dude, we've like, that term has been so overused, and like a lot of like people overuse clinical terms and shit like that. But let's just be real. Like that's what it was for me. And so I would act out in anger. I would throw things. I would like, try to say the worst thing that I could possibly say. I would put out an intimidating, like bullshit type of energy to where it was like, don't fucking talk to me and that kind of shit. And I did that, dude. I'm not going to sit here and bullshit. Like part of, why I talk about this stuff is because it's extremely freeing to just be real about these embarrassing things and these behaviors that are less than desirable. And I can say that, I'm not in a position to where I do that anymore. I still can get angry to where I want to say like, fuck, or like cuss basically, but it doesn't get into the area of me like screaming ever, like slamming things, or like doing that downright abusive behavior that I did for a long time. And it's hard to admit because we don't want to make ourselves look bad, but that's just the truth. And so basically, the point of this video is just to say that like we have this idea that if we withhold, emotions, and we try to hide this stuff, that like somehow like we will be strong, and like in reality it like breaks us down. And I'm not here to label anyone as weak, but it's like, dude, it kind of like weakens our stability, and our emotional regulation can just be completely non-existent. Now, if you add substance abuse into that, and impulsivity, this can be dangerous. And I think that's why people that are in substance use disorder can do very erratic and hurtful things. And that's why, the substance use disorder that we can experience in our own lives doesn't just affect us, it can really affect every single person around us. And so this is actually a part of this avoidance of emotions, is substance use disorder. So for some people it doesn't get that far, but for others it does. And so the use of depressants and even stimulants, uppers and downers, can be put in a place to implement this idea, or just this practice of trying to avoid emotions and to not feel emotions. Like I remember back when I was actively using, like I would write a lot of music, and like one of the lyrics that I wrote was like, I feel no emotions. It was something like potent potions. I take potent potions and I feel no emotions. It's really corny, but I'm just saying, like, to me, that was something I was conscious of and I was trying to do. I was like, I don't want to feel emotions. These are hard. And then it becomes this avoidance of like challenging things. And that's why you'll see people that are avoiding emotions and then something challenging comes up and they blow up. And it's like it's not like a like realistic reaction to whatever happened. It can be something very small. And a lot of people's parents do this. A lot of dads do this, and it like traumatizes their kids. It like teaches their kids that. Maybe if they are, someone who is a female or identifies as a female, then they have this idea that this is how men act, and this is extremely concerning because it can cause a lot of trauma. And the same thing happens, with people who identify as men or whatever, to where they're like, oh, like this is how you get kind of taught, that's how you're supposed to act. And I'm not saying that justifies it or anything. I'm just saying, like, we are indoctrinated in this society to basically push aside emotions and to cope with substances, even if it's not at the level of like substance use disorder. Generally speaking, the way that we consume substances, in our society is extremely unhealthy, because even when you see it in movies and stuff, it's like, oh, I had a hard day, or this really challenging thing happened. I had a breakup. I had this happen. Then it's like, the archetype of someone like standing in the kitchen and like, opening up a bottle of liquor and like chugging it, or like the mom that like pours a full glass of wine and chugs the whole thing. And like, we can joke about these things because I obviously joke a lot about substance use disorder and my own trauma with it. But like, dude, in all honesty, a lot of this stuff just is extremely harmful and normalized. And you know what I mean? Even if it's not at the level of substance use disorder. That's one thing I think I need to make really clear, is that, I'm here to talk with accountability about just all of this stuff, not just substance use disorder, because we can fall into very unhealthy, habits and behaviors. And it doesn't just apply to people with substance abuse issues. You know what I'm saying? So look, the moral of the story is that, these things like feeling emotions and expressing sadness and stuff are viewed as inherently feminine. Okay. That's what they're labeled as. And, our dialogue about gender and all that stuff is like drastically changing all the time. Okay. But I would say that, I still do honestly feel that, but the thing is that's looked as a negative. So it's like, it's feminine. Oh, it's negative. Oh, it makes you weak. And it's like, women are some of the strongest beings on earth and are literally like, a conduit to the other side and like a portal. And that's how we have more humans. You know what I mean? And that's a very powerful thing. But for some reason, these traits are viewed as negative and weak. And I can say what you want about the duality or the polarity of like gender and stuff, but like I still do like value some of that stuff. And I think that for me, embracing these things that are viewed or labeled as inherently feminine are very beneficial. And I think that's what makes me who I am. You know what I mean? I would say I definitely have a balanced sense of like what helps me in my life, and a lot of those traits are like things that would be labeled as feminine, like being compassionate, having empathy, and all these things are just human. Like, if you really want to get down to it, we can put these labels on it. We can look at these like kind of like binary things, but in my honest opinion, I think that when it really comes down to it, this is just what it means to be a human, and everyone needs to utilize these things. That's my honest opinion, okay? And people can disagree with me, but I think that if you're lacking empathy, if you're lacking understanding, compassion, intuition, then that's a discrepancy, and I think it needs to be addressed. That's my honest opinion. I'm not trying to demonize you if you don't resonate with those things. I just think that is part of our journey here on earth, is to look at all that stuff and look, dude, I just think that it's some of the most valuable things. And, this idea of like brute force and like strength and everything, it's always just like, I'm sorry, it's a lot of basically downplaying anything that is feminine and like just propping up anything that's viewed as masculine. That's my honest opinion. And you could say that's rooted in misogyny. You could say that's rooted in a lot of just really bullshit ideals. And So, I mean, I went all over the place there, but really the message of this is that, avoiding emotions and stuffing them down results in you blowing the fuck up usually. And then, like, you find yourself reacting out of really fear, and that manifests as anger. And then that can create a cycle. So, I strongly encourage anyone out there, if you're dealing with just issues with emotions and stuff like that, talk to a clinical professional. You know what I mean? Get in there and talk about your feelings, man. Like, it doesn't make you weak. It actually makes you a lot stronger. So that's it for today. Much love. If you have any questions for me, you can hit me up on my website. That's sextonaccountability.com. And feel free to check out my content on TikTok at Sexton Sober. That's my comedy content. Accountabro is my serious content. And then my main account is Sexton Sobriety. You can also hit me up on Instagram at Sexton Sober. Much love. Be easy.